Olivia and I'm going to be doing Ancient Greek today. So I'm going to be making sea bass with a topping of feta cheese and there's breadcrumbs in it as well. And there's also going to be a side of asparagus and some carrots. So I'm going to start off by doing a quarter of a cup of breadcrumbs. So, cheese. This is a recipe that I found online, but I also looked at some other sources to make sure that they actually had some of these ingredients in the ancient Greek, because you can't trust everything you see online. Then we need potatoes. Well, you may not have fresh, but I can find any fresh then. So, okay, this is good. I'm just going to put a small amount in. Mix it all together, combine, lightly grease my baking dough, fish ready. So I bought some boneless sea bass fillets. Go for it now. Yeah. And then I'm gonna, because there's 4 of us eating. Oh my god, they smell really bad. I'm gonna chop them in half with these on the baking tray. Preparing the veg now to go along with it. Supper was the main meal of the day for the Greeks. Their diet mostly consisted of fish and veg, especially at the supper meal. And fish was their main protein that they ate because beef was a bit too expensive. And especially pork and beef wasn't available to the poor unless it was a religious festival. So that's why I chose to do the sea bass. Wine was the main drink that the ancient Greeks drank, but it was watered down so they didn't get drunk all the time. And also with dessert, like I'm going to do, they didn't have sugar, so to sweeten things up they used honey as a natural sweetener instead. The Greeks didn't have any eating utensils and they ate with their hands, but I'm not going to make my guests do that today as we've got new standards of eating. And also bread was a main staple in their diet. I haven't made it today as I thought it would be a bit too difficult, but it's what they would normally eat with lunch. They'd have bread and veg and probably dip it in oil and have olives and things. So I'm doing carrots and I'm also doing an asparagus as well. Asparagus, best way to do it is just to snap them. Yes. And asparagus was one of the vegetables that they had available to them. Milk was rarely drunk because it was considered barbaric. And I'm going to put the asparagus in a little bit later because you don't have to boil it for as long, otherwise it can get a bit gross. Alright, so I'm going to get the fish out now. Ooh, looks alright. Make sure it's cooked. That looks cooked. That looks cooked. So the ancient Greeks ate lots of fruits, so for my pudding I'm just doing a selection. I'm just going to have some apples. We've also got the red and the green grapes, and it's also going to be served with some natural yogurt to go with it because they had yogurt back then. Yeah, just a nice simple pudding that also use now really. Okay, dig in. I hope it's nice. I'm going to eat my carrots first.
How's it good?
I apologise if the fish is good.
I've never had asparagus before.
What?
No? Really good.
I got it, I quite like it.
Thumbs up to the Greeks. I actually quite like that.
Do you? That's quite good because you don't like fish, do you?
Much eat all of this.
It's actually really nice. We'll probably actually make this at home.
I can give you the recipe if you want.
Choke it down.
Sorry.
So Liv with her Greek-inspired menu. The fish was really good. was so good, and the breadcrumbs and the feta cheese and the asparagus were really good. So, gonna give you an 8.
So, I gave Liv 8 because even though I don't actually like fish or feta, I actually really liked her fish, and the carrots and asparagus were really nice, and then yeah, the fruit was good.
I awarded 6 marks. I really like the sea bass. It worked well with the breadcrumbs and feta cheese, and the asparagus was nice, but it was a bit overcooked.
Hi, I'm Paige, and I'm going to cook a Neolithic feast. So I'm going to cook a lamb stew type thing. So it's mainly going to be like a big one pot. They could have just had it cooking over a fire, just in the background. So I'm going to start off with just going to bung in the meat. So I've decided to go for lamb because in the Neolithic period we start to see the we have beef, pork, lamb or mutton. We also have venison and stuff from when we were more hunter and gatherers, because they were wild in the UK. So in the Neolithic period is the first time we have the domestication of animals and plants. It spreads from Asia across west, and it gets to the UK in about the 4th millennium BC, and then it takes about 2,000 years to spread across the whole Isles. So in that time they would have eaten a lot of like leaves, as they called it in my research. So such things as like cabbage and leek, spinach. They had vegetables such as onions and stuff. They didn't have such things as like tomatoes, carrots or anything like that, which we normally have in our staple diet today. So it's been quite hard research wise. And also we don't really have the same species as of vegetables that they would have had. So that added to the difficulty of me doing research into this. So this onion's been in my cupboard since the beginning of this year. I'm sure it'll be fine. So from the Neolithic, it comes after the Mesolithic, where they exploited the marine resources a lot. In the Neolithic, we suddenly see a drop in marine resources within their diet, so we say much more terrestrial, with such foods as I said, like lamb and beef. And there's kind of a couple of reasons why I think they suddenly went to this Neolithic diet. And I guess they have a lot more carbohydrates in their diet from the cereals that they are now cultivating. And there was also a population increase, so there was a lot more strain on wild resources that had gone through the Paleolithic and Mesolithic. Also, it allowed for like feasting, so you could control the amount of food you had. And also, it was good for personal wealth. So you suddenly see almost like a chiefdom system appearing, because people suddenly had their own personal wealth in the amount of animals they could keep, the type of foods they could grow. This is what happens when you don't pay attention when you're cooking. So get rid of that. Let's try it again. We're going to use just quite a lot of different veg. So I've gone for, so you can see like my lamb has been kind of cooked to start off with, and then it'll just be left to stew. So we've got the onions. It's not very measured as a recipe, because the Neolithic people didn't just have measuring things to just do their stuff with. So leeks, cabbage, quite a healthy diet. Also, they didn't stop, they still continued with kind of their hunter-gathering ways, so this is still stuff they might have been able to find in the environment around them. So like they would have eaten things like nettles and roots as well, so they didn't continually straight away go on to a completely Neolithic and domestic diet. So chickpeas are something they actually had in Neolithic, which is cool because we have those today. I'm also going to put in pearl barley. So the main thing about the Neolithic is that they suddenly could farm cereals mainly. So cereals and carbohydrates became quite a staple part of their diet. As you'll see when I make some bread as well. It's all quite simple. I think that's the main thing about their food. So just pretty much bung everything in. That's kind of the way I'm going. I've kind of made this recipe up on the spot. I'm just going to throw in a load of stock and a load of water. They probably wouldn't have had stock in the way that we do today, but they would have had their meat cooking for ages, and their actual meat would have sorted that out for them, but haven't really got time, so I'm just sort that out. I might have to add some more water as I'm going along. I'm just going to bung that in, see how it goes. So I'm going to attempt to make flatbreads. So they did have bread in the Neolithic, and when I did some research into it, apparently it was very crunchy, almost like a rock cake type dough. Because obviously their flour wasn't as refined as we have today, and just generally couldn't bake as well as we do today. So this one's going to be a bit more of a modern interpretation of stuff. So I'm going to go for just a nice big strong brown flour with a wholemeal, because they wouldn't have had nice refined white flour as we do today. So 250 grams of this. So this is just a really simple recipe of basically just flour and water. Some kind of treat, yeah, so it's got no yeast or anything like that. We should be cooking it in a frying pan. I guess they would have cooked over hot rocks or something similar. It's just getting down and dirty, as all archaeologists do. It's going to be really flat, probably quite dense. It's not going to be light and fluffy as we know our bread to be today. To work it in the same way as we do modern bread, because it's already really stiff and it doesn't really taste of anything. It's got no seasoning in it at all, so obviously in bread you would have kind of the flavour that you get from yeast, and you also get the flavour from salt, which we don't have in this. So it could be interesting to see what it actually tastes like. So I'm just going to roll it out. And I would use a rolling pin, but it feels more authentic to just use my hands. So the stews are always ready, as you can see. So these bread, I'm just going to pan fry them. The pan's not quite hot enough yet, so we'll just work on them. So they kind of look, well at the minute, they look kind of like I guess a modern version of a pita bread. They're quite tough, like actually rolling them out was really hard. I'm just serving plums for pudding. We just, in the Neolithic you only had what grew near you at the time, so in Britain we were a bit more limited to our fruits. So, good job. What?
It's really nice actually. Like a patty.
It's so flat, I was expecting anyone.
What's it, flatbread?
No, that's not one.
Well, yeah, but I mean like, so like tough.
It does taste kind of a bit bitter.
They kind of like if you flavour it. It's really quite nice.
This is nice, but it needs that flavour, but I was saying maybe you can use it. It needs that pepper.
This is really meaty.
Me too.
Yours. So for the scores, I've decided to give the Page's meal a 7, mainly because I felt that the bread was really bland and it didn't really have any taste. The food itself was great, but it was a bit stodgy and filling, and it was nice.
So for Paige, I gave her 7 because I actually really liked the bread, even though it didn't have like flavouring or whatever. I actually really enjoyed it, and the lamb stew was good, and a plum was a great dessert. So yeah, 7.
And with Paige's, I really liked the stew that she made at the beginning, and then for the pudding again it was a plum, which I really liked, so I'm going to give her a 7.
Having fun at archaeology. Did anybody see this coming when you signed up for the degree?